In 2005, 9 young Australians set off for Bali with dreams of adventure. What seemed like a routine holiday would soon become a journey into the depths of international drug trafficking. The Bali Nine, a group whose fates would intertwine in a story of crime, punishment, and a struggle for redemption. But behind the headlines lies a tale of betrayal, lost innocence, and the clash between personal choices and the harshness of foreign law. This is the story of how 8 men and 1 woman, caught in the web of global drug trade, became notorious figures in one of the most gripping criminal dramas of the 21st century. Only in Supreme News. Stay tuned as we bring you the story in details. The Bali Nine were a group of 9 Australians convicted in April 2005 for attempting to smuggle 8.3 kilogram, 18 pounds of heroin, valued at approximately 4 million Australian dollars, out of Indonesia to Australia. Ringleaders Andrew Chan and Muran Sukumaran were sentenced to death and executed on 29 April 2015. 6 others, Si Yi Chen, Michael Chugaj, Tan Duc Than Nguyen, Matthew Norman, Scott Rush, and Martin Stevens, received life sentences, while Renee Lawrence was sentenced to 20 years, later reduced, leading to her release in November 2018. On 5 June 2018, Indonesian authorities reported that Tan Duc Than Nguyen had died of stomach cancer. In November 2024, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese sought the repatriation of the remaining 5 members. On 15 December 2024, they were repatriated to Australia, and their life sentences were commuted immediately. Background and arrests. Australian police struggled to determine the connection between the 2 groups from Sydney and Brisbane, but managed to trace the movements of the Bali Nine members before their departure for Indonesia. Several members, including Norman, Lawrence, Stevens, and Chan, were employed by Eurist, a multinational catering company. Chan, who served as a supervisor, and the others worked at the Sydney Cricket Ground, where Eurist provided hospitality services. Rush and Chugaj claimed they were recruited by Tan Duc Than Nguyen, their co-defendant and the alleged financier of the smuggling plan, during a visit to a karaoke bar in Brisbane. Evidence revealed that Rush had met Nguyen 6 months earlier while fishing. Rush later traveled with Nguyen to Sydney to attend a 21st birthday party, where he was introduced to Sukumaran, who went by the name Mark. Nguyen allegedly offered Rush and Chugaj free trips to Bali. A few days later, the pair returned to Sydney, where plans were made for their travel to Indonesia. The Australian Federal Police, AFP, concluded that Sukumaran, Chan, Lawrence, and Norman were part of a larger syndicate that had successfully imported a commercial quantity of heroin into Australia from Indonesia on 23 October 2004. Additional members of the syndicate were arrested during 14 AFP raids conducted in Sydney and Brisbane in early May 2005. Bali, 9 arrests in Indonesia. Lawrence and Stevens arrived in Indonesia on the 6th April 2005, followed 2 days later by Rush and Chugai, former school friends from Brisbane. The group was introduced at a hotel where Chan and Sukumaran, who had arrived in Bali earlier, were staying. Chan and Sukumaran distributed SIM cards to maintain contact among the group. During their stay, police observed that most members spent significant time in their hotel rooms, although Rush and Chugaj ventured out for shopping, dining, drinking, and water sports. The group reconvened on 16 April for what authorities believe was a final briefing before meeting for the last time at the airport on 17 April, when they were arrested. Indonesian police, acting on information provided by the Australian Federal Police, AFP, including names, passport details, and suspected drug-related activities, placed the group under constant surveillance for a week prior to the arrests. On the 17th of April, the group was apprehended in possession of over 8.3 kilograms, 18 obesi, and of heroin concealed in plastic bags. That same evening, Chan was removed from an Australian Airlines flight about to depart Ngurah Rai Airport for Australia. Though carrying several mobile phones, Chan had no drugs on him at the time of his arrest. Authorities suspected he was responsible for receiving the heroin from the couriers upon their return to Australia. Indonesian police believed that a 22-year-old Thai woman, Cherry Likit Banakorn, supplied Chan with the heroin. Banakorn reportedly left Bali on 18 April 2005, the day after the arrests, and was briefly detained at the Thai-Malaysian border. However, she was released due to the lack of necessary extradition paperwork. During court proceedings, surveillance team leader Nyoman Gatra testified that Indonesian police were initially unaware of Sukumaran's involvement, as his name was not included in the AFP's original information. Sukumaran was assumed to be Chan's bodyguard because he was frequently seen accompanying him in Bali. Criminal proceedings. Pre-trial investigation. Under Indonesian law, individuals can be arrested without immediately being charged. By 22 April 2005, no charges had been filed against the Bali Nine. Authorities indicated that the 5 arrested at the airport would face drug trafficking charges, which carry the death penalty, while those apprehended at the hotel would likely be charged with drug possession, punishable by up to 10 years in prison. It was alleged that Andrew Chan recruited the other 8 as drug mules, couriers chosen to avoid suspicion while smuggling heroin to Australia, offering them between $10,000 and $15,000 each for the task, along with $5,000 in spending money. On 27 April 2005, Colonel Bambang Sugiarto, head of Bali's police drug squad, announced plans to charge all 9 individuals with offenses carrying the death penalty. He revealed that some of the accused had previously traveled to Bali using false passports, suggesting they had acted as drug couriers before. Police also released video footage showing heroin being removed from the bodies of the 4 individuals arrested at the airport. Initially, Indonesian authorities identified Chan as the mastermind behind the smuggling operation. Australian police suggested the operation was orchestrated by a larger Australian drug syndicate. However, the focus shifted to Muran Sukumaran, who was eventually identified as the true leader of the smuggling plot. Defense lawyers acknowledged that the 4 individuals apprehended at the airport were acting as drug couriers, but argued they were motivated by financial desperation to support their low-income families and had been threatened with physical harm if they refused. They also claimed the couriers were unaware of the nature of the substances they were transporting and did not know that drug trafficking in Indonesia carried the death penalty. Reactions in Australia. The parents of Rush and Lawrence criticized the AFP for allowing the Indonesian police to arrest the 9, rather than allowing them to fly to Australia and arresting them in Sydney upon their return. On 24 April 2005, AFP Commissioner Mick Keelty said the AFP would hand over all evidence it had obtained against the Bali Nine. The policy is that we will not give evidence that will, or information that will, directly cause or result in somebody receiving the death penalty, but the reality is in this case it would appear on the allegation that these people have been caught red-handed with heroin in Indonesia. Australian Federal Police Commissioner Mick Keelty, May 2005. Lawrence's father, Bob Lawrence, said in October 2005 that he wanted to meet Keelty face-to-face after learning of the comments made by Lee Rush. As far as I'm concerned, and excuse the expression, Keelty is an arsehole. These kids were forced into this. They should have been either arrested at the airport here or followed to get the big guys. I don't know how they can sleep at night. Even if the Bali Nine were guilty of doing it willingly, it still doesn't deserve the death penalty. Bob Lawrence, father of Renee. Lawrence, October 2005. On 13 February 2006, Rush's parents gave an interview to the ABC TV program Australian Story, speaking out against AFP actions. Rush's parents were quoted as saying, "I was informed at 1:30 in the morning that Scott would be spoken to and asked not to board the flight to Bali. It wasn't until about mid-morning that I received a call from Bob, Rush's lawyer, and a distressed tone in his voice he said, 'Mate, we could not stop him. They have let him go through, and he's on his way to Bali. Under no circumstances do I condone the trafficking of drugs. I particularly dislike drugs of any nature, always have. When I received a call from the Australian government authorities that Scott had been detained in Indonesia for attempting to export heroin, I was speechless, sickened to the gut. Lee Rush, father of Scott Rush, interviewed on ABC TV's Australian Story, February 2006. I feel very let down by our Australian Federal Police. We tried to lawfully stop our son leaving the country. It wasn't done. The Federal Police can go wherever they want, do anything, anytime without supervision from the Australian Attorney General or from the Justice Minister. This is not good for Australians, and our laws need to be changed to protect our citizens, and this must not happen to any Australian citizen again. Christine Rush, mother of Scott Rush, February 2006. In an interview aired on the same episode of Australian Story, Mike Phelan of the AFP responded to the Rush family's criticisms and said, "Even with the aid of hindsight, should the same set of circumstances present themselves again with another syndicate or other people, we would do exactly the same thing. There have also been a large number of young lives on the other side of the ledger that have been saved as a result of the AFP's operations over many years." AFP's Mike Phelan interviewed on ABC TV's Australian Story, February 2006. Keelty went on to state that if someone went back to Lee Rush and assured him that Scott would not be able to travel, then that is their call. We would never have given any assurance because there was no lawful reason to prevent him from traveling. My sympathy is with Lee Rush because somebody has misled him. Whoever gave Lee Rush the assurance that his son would be prevented from traveling acted dishonorably. There is no way anyone in the AFP would have provided that assurance because there was simply no power to detain him. He was not wanted on warrants, there were no conditions of his bail that prevented him from traveling overseas. AFP Commissioner Keelty on ABC TV's Late Line, February 2006. Federal Justice Minister Chris Ellison defended the AFP's actions. What we have are serious allegations as to criminal activity which allegedly occurred on Indonesian soil, and the Indonesian police acted accordingly. We would expect the same of Australian police if the situation was reversed. Federal Justice Minister Senator Chris Ellison, April 2005. The Foreign Minister, Alexander Downer, said that Australia opposed the death penalty and would seek clemency for the group if they were convicted. Philip Ruddock, a federal MP, was quoted as saying, "We will not provide cooperation in relation to criminal matters unless there is an assurance that a death penalty will not be sought. If there was further information that had to be obtained from here through the Australian Federal Police, we would seek an assurance that Indonesia would not be wanting a death penalty in each of those cases." Philip Ruddock, MP, September 2005. Criminal trials. Criminal trials for the accused commenced in the Denpasar District Court on 11th of October 2005. 3 of the 4 arrested at the Melasti Bungalows, Nguyen, Chen, and Norman, were tried together, with the remaining 6 defendants tried separately. All defendants faced a maximum penalty of death by firing squad if found guilty. The trials were often delayed due to the defendants complaining of illness, headaches, and nausea. Australia's Prime Minister, John Howard, said the Australian government would oppose any death sentences imposed. On 6 December 2005, Australian lawyers Robert Richter and Brian Walters called for the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions to extradite the 9 to Australia on heroin conspiracy-related charges. On 7th of December 2005, Denpasar District Court Judge Wayan Yasa Abadi called for Australians not to interfere in the legal proceedings in Indonesia, saying, "Criticism from outside is expected, but Indonesian courts will only adhere to the laws applied in this country, and that includes the death penalty. The judges will not budge. We will not be affected by public opinion or the media." Denpasar District Court Judge Wayan Yasa Abadi, December 2005. Sukumaran remained mostly silent throughout the proceedings and blamed amnesia for his poor recollections of events leading to his arrest. Trials were scheduled to be completed with verdicts announced before 23rd of February 2006, before a legal deadline for the group's detention expired. Lawrence claimed that she received threats of harm against herself and her family if she did not proceed with the plan to import heroin into Australia, and gave evidence in the Denpasar District Court that she was ordered to book a flight to Bali. She claimed she did not know why she was ordered to travel. Her co-accused Stevens claimed he was also ordered with threats to travel to Bali by Chan, who showed him some photographs of his family going about their daily lives, saying that they would be killed if he did not cooperate. Rush further accused Chan of strapping the heroin to his body wearing rubber gloves. Chan protested his innocence and defending his silence during his final plea, reading from a 2-page statement. "I didn't say anything in court because if I did, I'd be lying. The truth is, I know nothing. A lot of lies have been said against me, but the true reality is, I'm not what people put me out to be. I've never threatened anybody in my life. The outcome I wish, of course, and my family is that you find that you would release me, for I had nothing to participate in this." Andrew Chan, reading from his statement before the Denpasar District Court prior to his sentencing, February 2006. In sentencing Lawrence, the judges found no evidence to support her claim that her life was threatened, and although the prosecutors requested a lighter 20-year sentence due to her early cooperation with police, the judges sentenced her to life imprisonment. On the next day, the remaining 3 defendants, Chen, Nguyen, and Norman, were sentenced to life imprisonment as well. On the 24th January 2006, the prosecutors demanded the death penalty for Sukumaran, this being the first time that a demand of death was put forward for any of the Bali Nine. They told the Bali court that there was no reason to show any leniency to the 24-year-old, because he helped organize the heroin smuggling operation. The prosecutors also claimed that it was Sukumaran who strapped heroin to the bodies of his fellow accused. Indonesian police identified Sukumaran as one of the main players in what they said to be a major smuggling ring. On 26 January, it was also recommended that Andrew Chan receive the death penalty. On 14th February 2006, after learning of his fate, Sukumaran attacked photographers and threw water bottles at protesters and onlookers gathered outside the court building. After news that the death penalty had been handed down, then Australian Prime Minister John Howard, noting that the death penalty warnings had been in place in Indonesia for decades, implored the youth of Australia to take notice and not take such terrible risks. The death sentences were criticized by some Australians, who compared them to the light sentence given to Abu Bakar Bashir, the Indonesian leader of the terrorist group which carried out the 2002 Bali bombings that killed more than 200 people, including 88 Australians. Both death sentences were cheered by some of those in court. Allegations of bribery were made on 27 April 2015 relating to Indonesian judicial authorities to reduce sentences to less than 20 years in prison. A former lawyer for Chan and Sukumaran declared that the original amount demanded was more than 1 billion rupiah, 133,000 Australian dollars, but 2 weeks before they were due to be sentenced, the deal failed and backfired, triggering a request for the death penalty. Julie Bishop, Australia's Minister for Foreign Affairs, expressed her concern over the allegations involving the questioning of the integrity of the judicial process. Timeline of sentences and appeals. On the 13th of February 2006, Lawrence and Rush became the first of the Bali Nine to face sentencing, each receiving life imprisonment. The following day, Chugaj and Stevens were also sentenced to life imprisonment, while the group's ringleaders, Chan and Sukumaran, received death sentences by firing squad, the first death sentences ever issued by the Denpasar District Court. On 15th February 2006, Norman, Chen, and Nguyen were likewise sentenced to life imprisonment. On 26th April 2006, Lawrence, Nguyen, Chen, and Norman appealed their life sentences and had them reduced to 20 years. However, the life sentences for Chugaj and Stevens were upheld. Prosecutors responded by appealing the reduced sentences. On the 6th of September 2006, the Supreme Court overturned some of the reductions, reinstating the death penalty for Chen, Nguyen, Norman, and Rush. These unexpected death sentences followed prosecutors' appeals, which had only sought to increase the 20-year terms to life imprisonment. Jugai's 20-year sentence was also reverted to life imprisonment, while the life sentences for Stevens and the death sentences for Chan and Sukumaran were upheld. Lawrence did not appeal her 20-year sentence, leaving it unchanged. On the 6th of March 2008, it was revealed that the death sentences for Norman, Chen, and Nguyen had been quietly reduced to life imprisonment, as confirmed by court sources. In August 2010, Rush launched a final appeal to overturn his death sentence, and a judicial review began on 18 August 2010. On 10 May 2011, Rush's appeal succeeded, reducing his sentence to life imprisonment. Meanwhile, on 21 September 2010, Chan and Sukumaran filed appeals to have their death sentences reduced to 20 years. However, on 17 June 2011, it was announced that Chan's final judicial appeal had been rejected on 10 May, and Sukumaran's final appeal was dismissed on 7 July 2011. On 10 December 2014, Indonesian President Joko Widodo declared in a speech that he would not grant clemency for drug offenses. Subsequently, Sukumaran's plea for clemency was denied on 30 December 2014, followed by the rejection of Chan's plea on 22 January 2015. Summary of sentences. All of the Bali Nine were convicted of drug trafficking of heroin. Number 1. Andrew Chan Enfield from New South Wales, Australia. Sentenced to execution by firing squad on the 14th of February 2006 by the Denpasar District Court. Sentence upheld upon appeal to the Bali High Court on 26 April 2006. Judicial review lodged with the Denpasar District Court on 13 August 2010. Sentence upheld upon appeal to the Indonesian Supreme Court on 10 May 2011. Pleas for clemency was rejected by the Indonesian President Joko Widodo on 22 January. Final appeal for judicial review rejected by the Denpasar District Court on 4 February 2015. On 6 April 2015, State Administrative Court rejects subsequent appeal against presidential rejection of clemency. He was executed on 29 April 2015 by firing squad at Nusa Kambangan Prison. Number 2. Si Yi Chen from Doonside, New South Wales, Australia. Sentenced to life imprisonment by the Denpasar District Court on 15 February 2006. Sentence reduced to 20 years upon appeal by Judge Arsan Pardede in the Bali High Court on 26 April 2006. On appeal, Supreme Court imposes the death penalty on 6 September 2006. On appeal, Supreme Court reduces sentence to life imprisonment on 6 March 2008. Served time in Karabokan Prison. Returned to Australia on the 15th of December 2024. Number 3. Michael Chugai from Oxley, Queensland, Australia. Sentenced to life imprisonment by the Denpasar District Court on 14 February 2006. Sentence reduced to 20 years upon appeal by Judge Arsan Pardede in the Bali High Court on 26 April 2006. On appeal, Supreme Court reinstates sentence of life imprisonment on 6 September 2006. Served time in Karabokan Prison. Returned to Australia on the 15th of December 2024. Number 4. Renee Lawrence from Newcastle, New South Wales, Australia. Sentenced to life imprisonment by the Denpasar District Court on 13 February 2006. Sentence reduced to 20 years upon appeal by Judge Arsan Pardede in the Bali High Court on 26 April 2006. 5-month remission on Merdeka Day on 17 August 2009. Initially served time in Karabokan Prison. In 2013, transferred to Negara. Bali, after authorities accused her of a plot to kill jail guards. In 2014, transferred to Bangli, Bali. Sentence commuted. Released on 21st November 2018. Number 5. Tan Duc Than Nguyen. From Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. Sentenced to life imprisonment by the Denpasar District Court on 15 February 2006. Sentence reduced to 20 years upon appeal by Judge Arsan Pardede in the Bali High Court on 26 April 2006. On appeal, Supreme Court imposes the death penalty on 6 September 2006. On appeal, Supreme Court reduces sentence to life imprisonment on 6 March 2008. Initially served time in Karabokan Prison. In 2014, transferred to Malang, East Java when it was reported he had violated prison rules. Died from cancer June 2018 in a Jakarta hospital. Number 6. Matthew Norman. From Sydney, Australia. Sentenced to life imprisonment by the Denpasar District Court on 15 February 2006. Sentence reduced to 20 years upon appeal by Judge Arsan Pardede in the Bali High Court on 26 April 2006. On appeal, Supreme Court imposes the death penalty on 6 September 2006. On appeal, Supreme Court reduces sentence to life imprisonment on 6 March 2008. Served time in Karabokan Prison. Returned to Australia on the 15th of December 2024. Number 7. Scott Rush. From Chelmer, Queensland, Australia. Sentenced to life imprisonment by the Denpasar District Court on 13 February 2006. On appeal, Bali High Court imposes the death penalty on 6 September 2006. On appeal, Supreme Court reduces sentence to life imprisonment on 10 May 2007-2011. Initially served time in Karabokan Prison. In 2014, transferred to Karangasem, Bali. Returned to Australia on the 15th of December 2024. Number 8. Martin Stevens. From Toraji, New South Wales, Australia. Sentenced to life imprisonment by the Denpasar District Court on 14 February 2006. Sentence of life imprisonment upheld upon appeal by Judge Lanang Parbawa in the Bali High Court on 26 April 2006. On appeal, Supreme Court upheld sentence of life imprisonment on 14 January 2011. Initially served time in Karabokan Prison. In 2014, transferred to Malang, East Java, when it was reported he had violated prison rules. Returned to Australia on the 15th of December 2024. Number 9. Muran Sukumaran. From Auburn, New South Wales, Australia. Sentenced to death on the 14th of February 2006 by the Denpasar District Court. Sentence upheld upon appeal on the 26th of April 2006 by the Bali High Court. Sentence upheld upon appeal to the Indonesian Supreme Court on the 6th of July 2011. Plea for clemency was rejected by the Indonesian President Joko Widodo on the 30th of December 2014. Final appeal for judicial review rejected by the Denpasar District Court on the 4th of February 2015. On the 6th of April 2015, State Administrative Court rejects subsequent appeal against presidential rejection of clemency. Executed on 29th April 2015 by firing squad at Nusa Kambangan Prison. Appeals. The Bali Nine had several avenues of appeal available to them. Lawyers had 7 days after sentencing to file appeals. While there was no time limit to request clemency from the President of Indonesia, such requests required an admission of guilt and, until 2009, had never been granted for drug-related crimes. All 9 members initially appealed their sentences. After these appeals, the sentences for Chen, Chugaj, Nguyen, Norman, and Stevens remained at life imprisonment, while Lawrence's sentence stood at 20 years. In May 2011, Rush successfully had his death sentence reduced to life imprisonment following a final appeal launched in August 2010. Chan and Sukumaran also filed final appeals in August 2010 to have their death sentences reduced. However, Chan's appeal was denied by the Indonesian Supreme Court on 10 May 2011, and Sukumaran's was rejected on 6 July 2011. Both later submitted clemency pleas to the Indonesian president, but these were denied in December 2014 and January 2015, respectively. In late January 2015, their lawyers filed an application for a judicial review of their cases, but the Denpasar District Court rejected it within days. Despite the ongoing legal efforts, an Indonesian Attorney General spokesperson clarified that judicial review requests would not halt the execution process, and preparations for the executions continued. On 9 February 2015, Chan and Sukumaran's lawyers launched a rare challenge against the president's refusal to grant clemency, but this was dismissed by the Indonesian government the next day. On the 6th of April 2015, an Indonesian court rejected another appeal by Chan and Sukumaran, ruling that the president's clemency decisions could not be legally contested. Their lawyers announced plans to appeal to the Indonesian Constitutional Court to review President Widodo's decision to deny clemency. However, the Indonesian Attorney General accused the legal team of merely attempting to delay the executions and declared that no further postponements would be allowed. Execution of duo Chan and Sukumaran. Chan and Sukumaran were executed by firing squad on the morning of 29 April 2015 on Nusa Kambangan Prison Island, alongside 6 other individuals convicted of drug offenses. The others executed included Zainal Abidin, an Indonesian, Rodrigo Goularte, a Brazilian, and 4 Nigerians, Sylvester Obiekwe Nwalise, Rahim Agbaje Salami, Okwudili Oyatansi, and Martin Anderson. Filipina Mary Jane Veloso was granted a last-minute reprieve due to a pending investigation in her home country regarding a drug trafficking syndicate, in which she was expected to testify. The executions garnered significant support among the Indonesian public, but they faced strong opposition and protests from foreign diplomats. Reaction in Australia. On the evening of 29 January 2015, the Mercy Campaign held a candlelight vigil called Music for Mercy in Sydney's Martin Place to support Chan and Sukumaran. The event featured performances by Archibald Prize-winning artist Ben Quilty, musicians Megan Washington, Josh Pike, Kate Miller-Heidke, Paul Mack, Glenn Richards from Augie March, and Julian Hamilton from The Presets. Media personalities Andrew Denton and Jennifer Byrne, along with musician Missy Higgins, also contributed by recording video messages of support. Amnesty International organized similar vigils in Federation Square, Melbourne, as well as in Adelaide, Canberra, and Byron Bay. Following the executions of Chan and Sukumaran, Swinburne University academic Julian Oldmeadow admitted in a lecture that he had considered asking Indonesian international students to leave his class. He later apologized for his remarks. A Roy Morgan research poll conducted between 27 February and 1 March 2015 revealed that 53% of Australians opposed the executions of Chan and Sukumaran, while 47% supported them. Indonesia's Attorney General, Muhammad Prasetyo, claimed there was significant support for the death penalty within Australia. Related arrests. On 27 April 2005, Indonesian police shot and killed Mansing Gale, a known major Indonesian drug trafficker believed to be directly connected to the Bali Nine. Gale, of Australian origin, was killed when police stormed his home. Australian Federal Police Commissioner Mick Keelty said Gale was directly linked to the Bali Nine. 6 men aged between 19 and 25 were arrested and released on bail in Brisbane on drug trafficking charges believed to be associated with the Bali Nine. On the 12th of February 2006, police arrested Do Hyung Lee, a 25-year-old of South Korean origin, at Brisbane Airport after arriving on a flight from South Korea. Lee was charged with drug trafficking and importation offenses and appeared in the Brisbane Magistrates Court on 13 February 2006, the same day the first of the 9 accused in Indonesia learned of their fate. Lee was bailed to reappear in court with the 5 others on the 3rd of April 2006. Keelty told a Senate Estimates Committee hearing that more arrests were expected. Reaction after execution. Amnesty International strongly condemned the executions of Chan, Sukumaran, and 6 other drug-related convicts on 29 April 2015, calling them reprehensible. Diana Syed, a human rights lawyer and crisis campaigner, stated, "The death penalty is always a human rights violation, but there are a number of factors that make today's executions even more distressing." Following the executions, Australia recalled its ambassador to Indonesia. Prime Minister Tony Abbott described the executions as cruel and unnecessary, asserting that both men had been fully rehabilitated during their time in prison. Opposition leader Bill Shorten echoed this sentiment, expressing his disgust at the executions. Repatriation to Australia. Renee Lawrence's sentence was commuted in 2018, and she was released and deported on 21 November of that year. In November 2024, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese appealed to Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto to allow the transfer of the remaining 5 Bali Nine members imprisoned in Indonesia to Australian custody to continue serving their sentences. The Indonesian government later announced it would consider the request. On 15 December 2024, the 5 remaining members of the Bali Nine, Si Yi Chen, 39, Michael Chugaj, 38, Matthew Norman, 38, Scott Rush, 39, and Martin Stevens, 48, returned to Australia on a commercial Jetstar flight. They will not be required to serve any additional prison time in Australia. The Bali Nine, once seen as symbols of the dark side of youth rebellion, now serve as reminders of the complexities of crime, justice, and the law. For those who survived, life has never been the same. For others, their story remains frozen in time, as the debate over their punishment and the consequences of their choices continue to echo across the globe. Even as the sands of time drift away, the legacy of the Bali Nine lives on, a story of human fallibility, the quest for justice, and the indelible impact of one fateful decision. Don't forget to subscribe to Supreme News for more news update and documentary like this. Let me know on the comments section if you'd like further adjustments or if you'd like more specific details added. Thank you for watching. See you on the next documentary.